Every time you react, you give your power away. Anger, panic, jealousy, they pull you like strings on a puppet. But when you learn to pause, to respond with clarity instead of emotion, everything changes. You stop being controlled. You start leading. This isn't about being passive. It's about becoming unshakable. Stay until the end, because the final shift I'll share is the key to mastering your mind in any storm. Inner storm. The untrained mind, the mind that has not yet been brought into conscious cultivation, is often like a stormy sea, relentlessly tossed about by the winds of external events and the turbulent currents of its own internal weather. Its thoughts, its emotions, its deeply ingrained habitual patterns. When a challenging situation arises, a provocative word is spoken, an unexpected obstacle appears. This untrained mind tends to react instantaneously, almost automatically, without a moment of conscious pause or reflection. This reaction is typically fueled by a potent cocktail of past conditioning, unhealed emotional wounds, unconscious biases, and the primal, often fear-based instincts of the ego. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The reactive mind might immediately flare with anger, unleashing a torrent of harsh words or aggressive gestures. Or perhaps a critical comment is made about your work. The reactive mind might instantly contract in defensiveness, shame, or lash out with counter-criticism. These reactions, while feeling intensely real and justified in the moment, are often disproportionate to the actual event, and they almost invariably escalate suffering, both for ourselves and for others. They are like sparks landing in dry tinder, quickly igniting a larger conflagration. This reactivity stems from a fundamental lack of inner space, a compression between stimulus and reaction. There is no room for wisdom, no pause for discernment, no opportunity for conscious choice. You become, in essence, a puppet pulled by the strings of circumstance and your own unexamined inner programming. The hard truth is that most of us live a significant portion of our lives in this reactive mode, constantly being buffeted by the external world, feeling like victims of our emotions and circumstances, wondering why we repeatedly find ourselves in patterns of conflict, stress, or dissatisfaction. We may even justify our reactions, believing them to be righteous or necessary, failing to see that they are merely the conditioned output of an untrained instrument. This inner storm of reactivity not only depletes our vital energy and clouds our judgment, but it also prevents us from accessing our deeper intelligence, our innate capacity for compassion, creativity, and skillful action. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of cause and effect, where external triggers dictate our internal state and subsequent behavior, perpetuating patterns of suffering and preventing true inner freedom. The first step in training the mind to respond rather than react is to become intimately, unflinchingly aware of this inner storm, to observe its patterns without judgment, to recognize the triggers that set it off, and to acknowledge the often destructive consequences of our habitual reactivity. This awareness itself begins to create the first sliver of space. Sacred pause. The cornerstone, the very linchpin, in the profound transformation from habitual reactivity to conscious response is the cultivation of what I call the sacred pause. This is the deliberate, mindful creation of a sliver of space, a moment of conscious stillness between the arising of a stimulus, be it an external event, an internal thought, or a challenging emotion, and your subsequent engagement with it. In that precious, often fleeting interval lies the entirety of your freedom, your power to choose, your capacity to shift from unconscious reflex to intelligent action. The reactive mind, as we have seen, collapses this space entirely. Stimulus and reaction become fused, instantaneous, almost indistinguishable. The trained mind, however, learns to consciously insert this pause, to resist the immediate, conditioned impulse to act, to speak, to judge. This is not an act of suppression, of trying to forcibly stop or deny your thoughts or feelings. It is rather an act of profound, non-judgmental observation. In that pause, you simply notice what is arising within you. The surge of anger, the wave of fear, the tightening in your chest, the racing thoughts, the defensive posture. You observe these phenomena as a detached witness, without identifying with them, without being swept away by them, without immediately acting upon them. This practice of the sacred pause can be cultivated through various mindfulness techniques, such as focusing on the breath. When a trigger arises, instead of instantly reacting, you consciously bring your attention to the sensation of your breath, the in-breath, the out-breath, the subtle rise and fall of your abdomen. This simple act of redirecting your attention, even for just 1 or 2 conscious breaths, can create enough inner space to interrupt the momentum of the reactive pattern. It is like stepping back from the edge of a cliff, giving yourself a moment to see the bigger picture before you act. The hard truth is that this practice, while simple in concept, requires consistent, dedicated effort, for the habitual patterns of reactivity are often deeply ingrained, forged over years, even decades, of unconscious repetition. The mind will resist, the ego will clamor for its usual outlet. There will be moments when you forget, when you get swept away by the old patterns. But with persistent practice, the muscle of mindful awareness, the capacity to create this sacred pause, will strengthen. You will begin to notice the impulse to react arising, and you will have a conscious choice to follow it blindly or to pause, breathe, and choose a different path. This sacred pause is not about becoming slow or indecisive. It is about becoming more intelligent, more discerning, more aligned with your deeper values. It is the gateway through which wisdom can enter, the space where you reclaim your power from the conditioned mechanisms of the mind and begin to consciously author your own experience, rather than being a mere character in a pre-written script of reactivity. Wise discernment. Once the sacred pause has been established, once you have created that crucial inner space between stimulus and engagement, the next stage in training the mind is the cultivation of wise discernment. Within that pause, with the initial storm of reactivity somewhat calmed by your mindful observation, you now have the opportunity to look at the situation and your own internal state with greater clarity, objectivity, and wisdom. This is where you move beyond simply noticing your reactions to actively, intelligently inquiring into their nature and their potential consequences. Wise discernment involves asking yourself crucial questions. What is truly happening here beyond my immediate emotional interpretation? What are the underlying needs or fears, both mine and potentially others, that are driving this situation? What are my conditioned patterns that are being triggered? What are the potential short-term and long-term consequences of various possible actions I could take? If I react from this place of anger, fear, or defensiveness, what outcome am I likely to create? Is there a more skillful, more compassionate, more constructive way to engage with this moment? This is not an overly intellectual or lengthy analytical process, especially once it becomes more practiced. It is often a swift, intuitive seeing, a clear perception that arises from a place of inner stillness and clarity. It involves differentiating between the raw data of the situation and the layers of interpretation, judgment, and emotional charge that your mind has superimposed upon it. It is about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the interconnectedness of cause and effect, and recognizing the potential for your actions to either escalate suffering or contribute to healing and resolution. The hard truth is that our reactive mind is often a very poor discerner of reality. It sees the world through the distorted lens of its own fears, biases, and past experiences. It jumps to conclusions, makes assumptions, and often creates elaborate stories that have little basis in objective truth. Wise discernment, cultivated in the stillness of the sacred pause, allows you to cut through these mental fictions, to see with greater clarity, and to access a deeper level of intelligence that is often obscured by the noise of reactivity. This capacity for wise discernment is not something you are born with. It is a skill that is developed through consistent practice, through the ongoing training of your attention, through a commitment to self-reflection, and through a sincere aspiration to live with greater wisdom and compassion. As you strengthen this muscle of discernment, you become less likely to be fooled by the illusions of your own mind, less likely to be drawn into unnecessary conflict, and more capable of navigating the complexities of life with grace, skill, and profound effectiveness. It is the ability to see clearly that allows you to choose wisely. Conscious response. Having created the sacred pause and engaged in wise discernment, you are now in a position to move from unconscious reaction to conscious response. A response, unlike a reaction, is chosen. It is deliberate. It is aligned with your deepest values, your highest intentions, and your understanding of what will best serve the situation and the well-being of all involved. It arises not from a place of fear, anger, or egoic defensiveness, but from a place of inner clarity, compassion, and strength. A conscious response is tailored to the specific reality of the present moment, rather than being a pre-programmed replay of past patterns. It is skillful, intelligent, and often creative. It seeks not to escalate conflict, but to find pathways towards understanding, resolution, or constructive action. For example, if faced with criticism, instead of reacting defensively, a conscious response might involve listening deeply to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it, calmly clarifying any misunderstandings, or perhaps even acknowledging any truth that might be present in the feedback without losing your own sense of self-worth. If faced with a setback, instead of reacting with despair or blame, a conscious response might involve acknowledging the disappointment, assessing the situation objectively, learning any available lessons, and then focusing your energy on finding constructive solutions or new pathways forward. This conscious response is not necessarily about being nice or suppressing your true feelings. It is about expressing yourself authentically but skillfully from a place of centeredness and integrity. It might involve setting firm boundaries, saying no with clarity and kindness, or even expressing disagreement, but doing so in a way that is respectful, non-aggressive, and aims for mutual understanding rather than victory or domination. The hard truth is that choosing a conscious response often requires more courage, more inner strength, and more self-awareness than simply giving in to our reactive impulses. It is easier to lash out in anger than to pause, discern, and choose a path of patient communication. It is easier to blame others than to take responsibility for our own inner state and our contribution to a situation. But the path of conscious response, while perhaps more challenging in the short term, is infinitely more empowering and ultimately more fulfilling in the long run. It allows you to become an active co-creator of your reality rather than a passive victim of circumstance. It strengthens your relationships, enhances your effectiveness in the world, and cultivates a profound sense of inner peace and self-respect. Each time you consciously choose to respond rather than react, you are strengthening the neural pathways of wisdom and compassion in your brain, making it easier to do so in the future. You are, in essence, retraining your mind, transforming it from an unruly master into a faithful, intelligent servant of your highest aspirations. Energetic shift. The profound journey from habitual reactivity to consistent, conscious response is not merely a mental or behavioral adjustment. It precipitates a fundamental energetic shift within your entire being. Reactivity is an energy-draining state. It keeps your nervous system in a state of chronic hyperarousal, constantly scanning for threats, ready to fight, flee, or freeze. This perpetual inner tension consumes vast amounts of vital life force, leaving you feeling depleted, stressed, and susceptible to physical and emotional imbalance. The emotional roller coaster of anger, fear, anxiety, and resentment that often accompanies reactivity further depletes your energetic reserves and creates a toxic inner environment. When you are caught in reactive patterns, your energy is scattered, unfocused, and often directed in ways that are counterproductive or harmful. A conscious response, on the other hand, arises from and contributes to a state of energetic coherence and conservation. The sacred pause allows your nervous system to settle, to move from sympathetic dominance, fight or flight, to parasympathetic activation, rest and digest. This shift conserves energy and creates an inner environment conducive to clarity, healing, and optimal functioning. Wise discernment allows you to direct your energy intelligently, focusing it on constructive solutions rather than wasting it on futile battles or negative rumination. The actions that flow from a conscious response are typically more measured, more effective, and less likely to create further energetic entanglement or depletion. The hard truth is that many people live in a state of chronic energetic deficit precisely because their minds are constantly caught in cycles of reactivity. They are leaking energy through worry, through anger, through resentment, through an endless internal commentary of judgment and fear. Training the mind to respond rather than react is therefore a profound act of energetic self-care. It is about plugging these leaks, calming the inner storms, and cultivating a state of inner stillness and coherence from which your energy can flow freely, purposefully, and powerfully. As you become more adept at responding consciously, you will likely notice a significant increase in your overall energy levels, a greater sense of calm and well-being, improved mental clarity, and enhanced resilience in the face of life's challenges. Your energetic field itself will begin to change, radiating a quality of peace, strength, and centeredness that can positively influence not only your own experience, but also the environment and the people around you. This is not just about feeling better, it is about becoming a more potent, more effective, and more luminous presence in the world, capable of navigating challenges with grace and contributing your unique gifts from a place of fullness rather than depletion. This energetic shift is the deep, tangible reward of a mind trained in the art of conscious response, inner freedom. Ultimately, the consistent practice of training your mind to respond rather than react leads to the attainment of true inner freedom, a freedom that is not dependent on external circumstances, a freedom that cannot be taken away by any person or event. This is the freedom from being a slave to your own conditioned thoughts, emotions, and impulses. It is the freedom to choose your inner state, regardless of what is happening in the outer world. It is the freedom to live with profound peace, unwavering integrity, and authentic joy, even amidst the inevitable challenges and imperfections of human existence. When you are no longer at the mercy of your reactive patterns, you are no longer a prisoner of your past. You are no longer defined by your old wounds, your ingrained fears, or your societal conditioning. You become, in a very real sense, the conscious author of your own experience, the sovereign ruler of your own inner kingdom. This inner freedom allows you to engage with life more fully, more courageously, more lovingly. You are no longer afraid of difficult emotions because you know you have the capacity to meet them with awareness and compassion without being overwhelmed by them. You are no longer afraid of challenging situations because you trust in your ability to respond skillfully and wisely. You are no longer dependent on external validation or approval for your sense of self-worth because you have discovered an unshakable source of peace and strength within your own being. The hard truth is that most people seek freedom in external things, in wealth, in status, in relationships, in changing their outer circumstances. But true, lasting freedom can only be found within, through the diligent, conscious cultivation of your own mind, your own awareness. The external world will always be unpredictable, filled with events and people that are beyond your control. But your inner world, your capacity to choose how you perceive and engage with those external realities, is always within your power to cultivate. The path from reaction to response is therefore the path to this ultimate liberation. It is a journey of reclaiming your inherent power, your innate wisdom, your profound capacity for peace. This is not a destination to be reached once and for all, but an ongoing practice, a way of living, a moment-by-moment commitment to awareness and conscious choice. But with each conscious response, with each moment you choose peace over turmoil, wisdom over reactivity, you strengthen that inner freedom, you deepen that unshakable peace, you become more fully the master of your own magnificent being. And that profound inner freedom is the greatest treasure, the most precious attainment on the human journey.